I'm going to rebuild this carburetor right here from start to finish, step by step, with no step skip, so keep watching. Okay, first of all we're going to take this hose off right here. We'll just push it off with the screwdriver. And we're going to take the fuel line off. We're going to cut this tie, not just the tie, not the line. Next we're going to pop the linkage off the top here. It just pops out, just like that. Let that fall down. Next we're going to move the linkage out of the way so we can get a wrench on this 1/2 inch nut. Next we're going to slide the carburetor off and take that fuel line off the bottom. Like that. So let's go take it to the bench. First thing we're going to do is we're going to run this jet down until it seats and count the turns. So my screwdriver's kind of like that, so that'd be 1/2, 1.5, 2, about 2 1/8. So let's take that out. So we know when we put that back in to go 2 1/8 turns. And that's going to be pretty close to where it was. You can see that point looks pretty good. Next we'll take the bowl off the bottom. You can see it's got a bunch of trash right here where this fuel line is. So we'll take that out and make sure that's clean. Yeah, it's got a lot of trash right there. We'll remove this gasket. We're going to remove this float pin. That just pushes out right there, and you can catch a hold of it right on this side. See, that just pushes out. You pull that out. When you lift this out, make sure that that hangs on there. That little pin right there on that float. There's a little spring that holds it on there. We probably got all that in the rebuild kit, but we want to make sure. Now we're going to remove where that needle valve set in there for that float. And the gasket. Okay, here's the carburetor kit. It's the Evinrude Johnson part number 396701. So let's see what all's involved in that. We got a new float. Got the intake manifold gasket. We got the new bowl gasket. We've got the float needle valve and seat, and we got all these, the float pin and all the inserts. Okay, we're going to take this orifice out of the back of here so we can clean that up. Set it in the bowl here for a minute so I don't lose it. Okay. We're going to install this kit on our right here. Might be your left, but here, this is all the old parts that we took out. This is all the new parts on this side. I will tell you that on this carburetor, I did not knock out all these plugs. Let me show you. All those plugs like that, and like in the bottom. Those are there so you can knock out to where if these, right above those, there's like 3 little holes in there. And if those holes are clogged or anything, you can knock out these plugs. And they give you new plugs in the kit to replace those. But this carburetor actually was running pretty decent. The only reason I'm rebuilding it is I've torn it apart so many times. I'm thinking the gaskets are getting more, and I put that new fuel filter system on the boat, so I'm going to go ahead and rebuild this carburetor here, so we'll be ready to go. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to slide this nozzle gasket back on here, right to the top. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this gasket on this valve seat for the float, and then we're going to screw that right into here. We want to be careful when we tighten it so we don't burn nothing. Okay. We're going to install this spring on this float seat here. And that kind of snaps in place. We'll slide in right on top of here. Just like that. Kind of hangs there. And that will drop right down in this hole. And we'll slide this float pin through. Slide that float pin through, just like so. Next we have to measure the float. They make a gauge that you set on the edge of the carburetor here, and it comes up, it's cut out, and you can tell if this float is the exact height that it's supposed to be, you know, when it's up. But also, and when it's down like this, all the way down, from the base of the carburetor to the top of the float is between 1 1/8 and 1 5/8. Now we're going to take the float chamber gasket and put on here. Sure that we're not catching nothing. And it technically tells you that you should put some Loctite on the screws. Then we're going to install the float bowl here. And it tells you can put Loctite on each one of the screws. And I haven't, but I'm just telling you that they are telling you that they recommend it. And you tighten the screws up in an X pattern. And you tighten these 12 to 16 inch pounds. Next we're going to install the intermediate orifice. And that goes right in the back of here. It's that little tiny orifice right there, and that goes right in that hole. There it is, right down in there. Okay, the next step would be put the high-speed orifice in this hole, back in there. I did not take that orifice out. It was froze down in there, and when I could get a good bite on it, but I could not back it back out of there. So I just made sure it was really clean. So that is the only part that we haven't done. Is it looks just like this orifice right here that we put in the top, but like I said, that was stuck. So, but it's good and clean. We're going to put the gasket on the primer nipple here, and then we're going to put that in here. This is for the primer. Tighten this up. Okay, next we're going to work on the slow speed idle. That's these right here. We're going to replace it's on these O-rings on here. So the first one, this is where this is where the valve goes in here. So on this side of it, there's an O-ring. So we're going to change that O-ring right there. There that is. Next, there's another O-ring right here. Let me take that spring off for now. Right here on the top of this screw. Okay. There it is. Got that on. Like that wasn't tiny. Okay, now we install this adapter sleeve back in the carburetor, right here. Well, I don't know if you can see this, but right when I was turning that in there, it broke off. Now I'm going to show you this. I didn't even have it screwed in there and it twisted off. And you can see right there, all that is brown right around there. So this has had hairline cracks in it. I didn't even get it tight. I didn't even get it up there. The weight of my wrench broke it. But you can see it's all brown. You can see it's all brown right around there. So it's not a fresh break. So anyhow, I'll get a new one. That's about 14 bucks. So, of course, the carburetor isn't much good without it, so I'm between a rock and a hard place. So yeah, we'll order it. Okay, well, my parts finally arrived. There it is, right there. $13.77 later from the one we twisted off here. With no effort. There it is. Remember, here's the old one that we twisted off. We've already got our new O-ring right here. So the only thing we got left to do is where this one broke off, we got to put our O-ring on our new one, which is right here. There it is. I'll make sure we're a little easier. That other one I just barely tightened it and it snapped, so it's I'm going to stop there. Because that was a $13.77. I don't know if we want to call it a mistake, but remember we seat this all the way down. I'll make sure that's, I don't know if it's just catching my O-ring or not. Hang on. That was kind of tight going in there, so I wasn't for sure if it was the just the O-ring or if it was that new if it was the O-ring rubbing on the side or bottoming out. So I put just a little bit of oil on there just to make sure. Obviously it was the O-ring grabbing. If you remember, we run this all the way down till it seats, and then we backed it out 2 1/8 turns. So 1/2, 1, 1 1/2, 2, and about 1/8. I did want to mention that on this jet here, low speed, if the engine hadn't been running, and this is where mine runs pretty good at, you would your starting point would be 1 3/4 turns out. You would seat it and then just 1 3/4 turns out, and that would be your starting point to where the engine should run from there. So there it is, back together. We'll take it out and put it back on the engine. It's kind of getting cool lately, so I don't know that I'm going to start it. I actually started this project a few weeks ago, so let's go put it back on. I'm not going to hook all the fuel lines up yet because we're going to install new ones. Alright, there it is, back on. And step by step with no step skipped. If you like what you see, give me a thumbs up, subscribe. And if you have any future videos you'd like to see, leave them in the comments below. And the next video we'll be doing is we're going to go ahead and rebuild this fuel pump, but as soon as the kit comes in. So keep watching.